Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Colts Cover 2 podcast. I am Indy Star Colts insider Jim Aiello, and I am joined, as always, and for the last time, I will say, for me, my fellow insider and co-host Joel A. Erickson. The way I did that, though, I made it sound like you were leaving.
But I'm not.
You're not leaving.
I'm not going anywhere.
I am leaving.
I'm staying.
You will get to listen to the dulcet tones of Joel A. Erickson for much, much longer, Colts Cover 2 fans. Real quick, I put a note on Twitter, so I've already said everything most of you probably already know, but I just wanted to say thanks. Before we get into this abysmal Colts loss, thanks for listening and thanks for being so active and talking to us. I saw a bunch of people a couple people today I saw were like, oh man, I'm gonna miss you on Colts Cover 2, and I was like, cool.
I got somebody who was like, but who's gonna be your Cover 2 podcast partner? Which that's TBD.
Yeah, Joel.
Don't know yet.
Up to Joel. I assume I'll be welcome back to dump on Christmas and any other holiday that happens during the year as a guest host of some sort. But other than that, you're gonna have to find a more regular co-host. So anyway, it's been a pleasure doing this with you and doing this with for you guys. So. Anyway, let's get into it. I was telling Joel before we started, I kind of wish this was more of a happy note. I don't want to be like Mr. Negative on my last day, but I don't have a choice. The Colts just got bullied today. 28-16. The Seahawks manhandled them on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stuck out to me was just we come into this game thinking, I think most people, especially nationally, were thinking, how's Carson Wentz going to look? Is Carson Wentz going to play well? That's the thing that could go wrong with the Colts is the quarterback position, and Wentz was maybe the best thing about the Colts today.
Yeah, that's pretty high up there.
I think he was. I don't know what looked better than him, honestly.
Rodrigo Blankenship made all his kicks. 2 of them?
I was gonna say
touchdown and a field goal, right?
It couldn't have been that many. Carson Wentz looked like the best player on this team. Or he was the best thing about this team today. And the things that the Colts are supposed to be counting on, the offensive line, which is supposed to be the foundation of this offense and this team, got manhandled.
Yep.
By a Seattle defense that does not have stars on the defensive line.
No, I mean, they have some talented players, but I was actually, Darrell Taylor, and we'll get to this, just bullied. I mean, just ran over Braden Smith on his way to a sack. Do you know how many games he's played?
This is his first one.
This is his debut.
Darrell Taylor was a third-round pick last year. He had to sit out his entire rookie season because of injury. This is the first time he's ever played NFL football.
Yep.
And he ran right through Braden Smith.
Yep.
I was told by an NFL tackle once that the worst thing that can happen to you is you get thrown in your quarterback. Because if they can do that, then they can do whatever they want to you. Smith didn't get thrown into the quarterback, but he might as well have.
Yeah.
The only thing that kept him from getting thrown into the quarterback was that he fell down. I
mean, the only thing that almost prevented the sack was that he almost tripped on Braden Smith on the way to him.
And it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a one-off with Braden Smith. There were other pressures. The first sack that Julian Davenport gave up, if Davenport's guy hadn't sacked Wentz, Smith's guy was coming from the other side.
I don't want to be a told you so guy.
I know this is a big Jim thing
but
to lock
he's
off.
not the best pass protector in the world. He's going to have games like this.
He shouldn't get run over, though.
No, that's different. But
that's something that should never happen to a guy like Braden Smith.
This is even a told you so thing. This is one of the things you and I both saw in camp. He wasn't very good.
He did struggle in camp, especially against the quickness of Tyquan Lewis. He did not look dominant in camp. I thought Mark Lewinsky looked the best of any lineman in camp because the other ones were all out.
Yeah, none of them played. No, that's fair. But I was concerned a little. I mean, Braden is one of those guys that, again, I think he's an above-average right tackle, and in the ground game, I think he's great. But in pass protection, he is liable. And when you have Julian Davenport on the other side, that is a major problem, which Frank Reich, I don't know how he didn't anticipate that being an issue, but I think he did. But it didn't look like it today because...
Well, the other thing was it wasn't just those two. Ryan Kelly gave up a hit that I thought there was no way Carson Wentz was going to get up right away.
He is. I mean, and to Ryan Kelly's point today, we learned that Carson Wentz is one tough son of a gun. But unfortunately, you don't want to learn that if you're an offensive line.
He got hit right in the mouth on a play that Kelly just got beat badly.
Yep.
Oh, that's the other thing about it. I think we can get into this now. There's sort of a thought going around on Twitter that this is a Wentz thing. Wentz doesn't get the ball out of his hands as fast as Phillip Rivers, so this offensive line was this bad all along. No, I'm sorry. It's
not this time.
If a quarterback is getting sacked on their offensive line getting beat by the first move of a defensive lineman and beat badly, the only play that gets the ball out before that happens is a very short throw.
Right.
A very quick short throw. And because Wentz didn't have any time, probably a little bit because of the Seahawks defense secondary too, but I think mostly because Wentz didn't have much time, the Colts only had one explosive passing play. They had a 24-yard completion to Paris Campbell. That's it.
Yep.
And I don't think that was Wentz. I think he was under fire all day. He got hit 10 times. He had a couple other plays that he danced around and created incompletions where he had no business getting incompletions. He could have been sacked like 6 times.
Yep.
I don't think this was on Wentz. This was on the offensive line. I know people don't like to blame the Colts offensive line because of its reputation. It was bad.
Yeah,
it was really bad
well,
today.
It also gives them like fever dream, like flashbacks of the Andrew Luck era. But this was like a remnant of the it looked like an Andrew Luck game, which was a great, once great quarterback. I mean, again, Wentz is not. I wouldn't say he was necessarily on the level of Andrew Luck, but maybe at certain times in his career. Anyway, having to run all over the place just to avoid getting killed and trying to make the best plays that he possibly could. I actually thought this looked like a little bit of an Andrew Luck era game with the way the offensive line played. And I will say, I think the evidence supports what you're saying about the offensive line, and what I wrote about the offensive line is that it was in the ground game too.
Yep.
They could not get the running game.
The ground game was bad too.
The running backs averaged 3.4 yards per carry, which would have been the 4th worst performance among last year if you were going through last year's games. There was a bunch of 3.8s, but 3.4 would have been very bad for them last year. And they struggled to get the run game going last year. So this was really bad the way they went today. So I didn't think there was any part of this offensive line. I mean, again, there's some, I think Quentin Nelson, I didn't see get beat, but it doesn't mean I'm, whatever. But I don't think running the
saw him get beat on a run play or two.
Okay. Running the ball, passing the ball as a unit, this was one of the worst performances. And again, he was hit 10 times.
I don't think I started covering this team with the Jets game in 2018. That was right after Costanzo came back. They had started to gel with the current edition of the line.
Right.
I don't think I've seen them get manhandled like this.
Well, last year, the most Phillip Rivers was hit was 5 times in a game. And again, he gets rid of the ball a little bit more, but he was sacked 5 times in one game too. So that happened. So 3 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. That Philly offensive line was as ridiculed and maligned as you could possibly be last year. Banged up and we didn't hate it. Didn't protect Carson Wentz. They never gave him any protection. One time did they let him get hit more than 10 times. He got hit 11 times in one game. After that, they never had him get hit double-digit times. Today,
it'll be interesting to see the time to throw on Wentz. I assume it's going to be a little bit longer than Rivers, but that's because Rivers was always in the top 5.
Yeah. They're different quarterbacks, and you want him to be a guy who holds onto the ball a little bit longer because he can do special things. Mm-hmm. Not all the time, but yeah.
But this was the offensive line. I don't think this is a scheme. I don't think this was a quarterback thing. It's the offensive line played bad. They played very bad football. And like I said, I know no one wants to believe the offensive line can play bad, but it did. It was terrible today.
One of the things I thought was possible was that they've had such little time practicing together that the chemistry wasn't there in terms of getting their calls. Like Ryan Kelly talked about how they missed a lot of critical snaps during training camp with Carson Wentz in terms of just organizing protections and things like that. But both Carson Wentz and Ryan Kelly said there really wasn't trouble identifying where the pressure was coming from. And I think that speaks to what we were talking about with Davenport and they're just getting flat beat. I mean, they had their assignments.
That's I think maybe there were a couple of blitzes that came free.
Yeah.
I remember a couple that came free. One of them turned into a completion. A guy came free, and Wentz got the ball out to Michael Pittman on the Colts' only touchdown drive. It was a really good play.
Yeah.
Or no, they had 2 touchdown drives. Sorry, it's hard to remember the second one.
The second one doesn't count. Garbage time.
But there were a couple plays like that where they came free. But I thought for the most part, it wasn't that they weren't identifying blitzes. I thought they just didn't block people.
I agree. And here's what I'll say before we move on to a different part of the Colts game. If this is a problem next week, they're going to lose, and badly, to the Rams' defensive line and pass rush.
Is much better than the Seahawks.
Yes. It's going to be a huge, huge problem. You will see. We haven't watched the Bears game tonight. I assume people will have watched it as they're listening to this.
Well, but the Rams. All you need to know is that the Rams finished first in the NFL in total defense last year.
Yeah, they are fantastic in terms of and Aaron Donald. I mean, again, assuming Aaron Donald's healthy,
they have the only interior rusher in the NFL better than DeForest Buckner.
Agreed. So this is going to be a problem. The other thing I will mention too is, kind of the way I wrote the story was. They're paid too much money to let this. They can't be a problem consistent. Again, 1 game, 16 more games. I get that. Frank Reich said that. Ryan Kelly said that. If they fix this thing in next week, then fine. This is just one blip on the radar. But they pay too much money to let this be the way the machine collapses. they're supposed to be what powers it. The run game, the passing game,
Right.
built around Frank Reich. This is what it's built around. So,
well, it's paid that way because it's supposed to be the foundation,
right,
and has been for the last 3 years, essentially.
Yeah.
Even in the Jacoby Brissett year, the offensive line did a really good job. That was like the 7th ranked rushing game in the league. Brissett got sacked a little bit more.
A little bit
than Rivers or Luck, but not like a lot. I think they still finished 10th in the league in sacks allowed. Think about that. This is an offensive line that has finished in the top 10 in sacks allowed 3 times in a row and top 5 twice. And they gave up 3 sacks and 10 quarterback hits. This was an out of character, abysmal performance, and it just cannot go forward.
If it goes forward, not only will they not win, but they might not have Carson Wentz on the field. We know this guy's injury track record. We know it's spotty, and he is, again, tough as hell. We saw it today, but his body won't hold up if he keeps taking 10 hits a game. So I don't think he will. I think this offensive line probably gets on track. I think you probably believe that too.
Yeah, ultimately, season openers tend to be a little bit wonky in terms of what happens.
I mean, we just saw the Packers lose 38-3.
Yeah,
I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC.
The Packers got beat 38-3. We've seen other games like this. I mean, the Colts lost to Jacksonville last year and then made the playoffs.
And Jacksonville won no more games after that.
Right.
Yeah. So
openers tend to be wonky, and you just assume that the guys who've been good are going to revert back to who they are.
Right. And addition by subtraction with Davenport on the left side of the line.
But again, that doesn't take away from the fact that this loss falls on the feet of the offensive line.
No doubt. Like I said, and when Fisher comes back, they should be better because they'll have all 5 starters. But man, yeah, no, this loss falls. Oh, I mean, again, offensively, I would say. Defensively, since we can get into this now, Kenny Moore kind of made a joke about it, but he's 100% right. This is like exactly what happened last season. Slow starts, and they rebound to have a good second half.
So what I ended up writing about the defense, I wrote about the defense. Podcast listeners know that I tend to focus on defense over offense. This Colts defense has been saying all camp and all offseason that it was going to be elite.
Yep.
That they wanted to be elite. The sky's the limit. We can do this. And what we saw today was a lot of the problems that have held it back for 3 years just happening again. Frank Reich said in the post-game press conference, so part of the thing with the first half was, well, Russell Wilson's just Russell Wilson. He's been doing this for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with that. Elite defenses make life tough on opposing quarterbacks. They just do.
Yeah.
They don't just capitulate every time they go up against an elite quarterback.
Agreed.
Russell Wilson was 18 of 23 for 254 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He had 152.3 quarterback rating.
That doesn't sound like a hard time, Joel. Seems like he had it pretty easy.
He got sacked 4 times, but
a couple of those were garbage.
A couple of those were scrambling ones where he got taken down right before the line,
and he lost like a yard. A couple of them were even intentional. I think he was kind of killing.
There were two what I would call real sacks.
Yeah. I get Forrest Buckner up the middle is one, and I'm trying to remember the other.
The other one was the blitz with Kari Willis. He came free, hit him. Al-Quadri Muhammad topped him, take him down. So, and this is what happened down the stretch last year. This is why the Colts finished 10th last year in rushing and not in total defense. This is why they finished 10th in total defense and not first. They were first for the first half of the season. They ran into a string of really good quarterbacks, and their pass defense cratered down the stretch and hurt them in the playoff game. And if that's what's going to happen every time they play an elite team, this defense is never going to take the next step. Like, it cannot be about that. So that's one thing that there's in there. Tackling. They were terrible tackling. Kenny Moore said they were terrible tackling.
Yep.
He didn't want to put it on other people, but you and I can. And I think Colts fans would agree with this.
Well,
There's a lot of really bad tackling.
Kenny Moore was one of them.
Yeah. No, he said he missed 3 or 4.
Right.
He knew. Bobby Okereke, I thought, had a rough time.
He was brutal today. Brutal. I don't think he found himself in the right run fit almost ever.
I'm trying to think of who else. There were a lot of plays that I felt like the defensive line had gummed up, and there should have been a play made at or near the line of scrimmage, and someone missed it. The 33-yard run that Chris Carson had that kind of jump-started things, he doesn't have a ton of room, and Bobby Okereke's there, and somebody else was there.
Zaire Franklin got there, but then got caught in the wash, I guess.
And neither one of them made a tackle that they should have made. I was watching that play through my binoculars and watching it closely, and I was like, oh, okay, drop for a wait. They didn't make the play.
I think the most disturbing part of that play, I don't know if you were getting there, was Darius Leonard.
Getting blocked out by the tight end.
But Will Dissly destroyed him. I mean, not only engaged him and kept him away from the running back, but turned him and pushed him out of the play.
Yeah. But from a tackling perspective, we've heard this before in 2019.
Yep.
In 2019, they were terrible tackling through the first 4 games?
Yeah, the opener was brutal against the Chargers. I mean, brutal.
And it went on beyond that. Because
Yeah.
I remember they went into Kansas City and won, and we were like, okay, the defense found itself. And at the time, Matt Eberflus said, yeah, there are just some years where teams start out bad tackling. Here's the problem. This defense has to tackle. And I know that sounds like something every defense has to do.
No, you're right.
But this defense is built around tackling well, tackling in the open field, tackling in the running game.
Yes.
It's built on stopping the running game, and it's built on forcing teams to throw the ball short and then making plays on receivers.
Yep.
And they didn't do any of that today.
Nope. No,
So
I mean, that's what the cover 2 is. It's keeping things in front of you and making the right play.
So there's another issue that came up that's been there in the past. The defense, people are going to like this because Darius Leonard kind of hit the scheme a little bit, I thought.
He what?
He kind of hit the scheme a little bit. He said it's in cover 2, and they ran cover 2 beaters in the middle of the field's open.
I hated that excuse. That to me felt like an excuse. You know what if you know what a cover 2 beater is, then beat it. Stop it.
I know, and we tried to ask him what they have to do, and he just kind of said, we just have to
Execute better. Well, I mean, the touchdown he gave up, I get. Like that was one of those ones where he was misdirected by a guy kind of like running in his zone before Everett came right across his face. But that's his zone. Right. Play it. Like, I mean, everybody knows you're playing cover 2, so you can't just say, well, they knew we were playing cover 2 and they beat it. Like, you're going to play cover 2 a lot.
But the larger problem, I think, is that we've talked about this in the past before. The middle of this defense.
Yes, this is this is all you.
15 to 20 yards has driven me nuts for years, that
Yep.
there's a hole there. And they exploited it. I mean, they also exploited it deep on the 69-yard touchdown pass.
Kari just got beat on a double move. And I wouldn't even call it a double move. It was just a fake to the outside, and then he got behind him. That was it.
But that can't happen.
No. I mean, I just wanted to say, they were playing 2 deep safeties. I couldn't put it on Blackman, who was playing pretty much the other side of the field. Kari has to be deep enough to make that play.
I think that's another thing. This is how this team has gotten beaten in the past. This is how this defense has gotten beaten in the past. The slow starts, that's last year. The tackling, the passing thing the middle of the defense thing has been there for a while.
Yep.
Intermittent pass rush has been there off and on for a while. There was a lot of reasons to go. I mean, I've seen this from the Colts defense before.
It's true, and the ways they've gotten around it is by doing the one thing that Darius Leonard did well today, which was forcing a fumble. They are decent at forcing turnovers and making impact plays at the right time. They just didn't have enough of them today. They just didn't get. They got that one.
They got that one, and that was it.
A DeForest Buckner sack, I think, was a big play at the time, but that's it.
I do think that the absence of Xavier Rhodes hurt,
For sure.
but not for the reason that most people think. I think most fans would be like, well, yeah, Rock Ya-Sin had to play. Rock was pretty good.
Rock was pretty good. Did you see him get beat in coverage very often?
No.
Not for anything significant.
No, I mean, the one time they took a shot at him, he was in really good phase on DK Metcalf, and it fell incomplete.
The DK Metcalf touchdown came against Kenny.
And the DK Metcalf 30-yard completion on the sideline came against TJ Carey.
And both Lockett touchdowns were Kari Willis's fault. I mean, I don't want to blame him for they blitz 7. Kari's 1-on-1 with Lockett.
It's a bad matchup. Putting him in that position over and over again is a bad idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't mind the play. I don't mind the blitz because you want to get to Russell Wilson, force him to make a quick bad decision. It's fine. Lockett made an incredible play. And that's what you're going to have. You're going to have those matches. He was in the slot, so Kari had to guard him, and that was a bad matchup for the Colts, but you're supposed to get home.
It was interesting to me that the Colts came out blitzing.
I liked it. I like the aggressiveness. It's out of character. So the Seahawks probably weren't expecting it. Didn't work.
Oftentimes, though, when you do that against a veteran quarterback, it ends up badly for you.
And they can see it coming, and they know how to exploit it, and that's what happened. I mean, especially, even though, again, that Lockett touchdown took a remarkable throw and catch by those two.
Yeah, but that's what they do.
That's what they do. I agree with you. But I didn't have a problem with the play call. Honestly, I didn't. I had a problem with the execution. If you're going to blitz 7, you got to get home quick.
So there's just there's all this stuff. They've been saying this defense is going to it's going to go to the limit.
Yep.
There's no limit to this defense. It can go farther. This is supposed to be Chris Ballard's defense. It's got issues, or at least it did. A lot of the issues we saw today are issues it's had in the past. Now, is there time for it to iron out? Yeah, there is, and it probably will because that's the way this Colts defense has been. I don't think there's been a season with Matt Eberflus where they were just completely bad the entire season.
No, they weren't even bad for an entire game today.
Right, they were pretty good in the third quarter.
Yeah, third quarter and most of the fourth, I thought they were pretty good.
I mean, the first drive of the fourth quarter was bad.
Yeah, and
30-yard completion, couple of runs. Fired a touchdown pass.
Well, again, if you're one touchdown for Seattle in the second half, I'll take it over as a half.
Right.
But you're right. In third quarter, they were at their best.
Third quarter, they were really good, but one good quarter doesn't make a game.
No, I totally agree.
it just cannot be. This is going to be an elite defense, that's not me holding them to that standard. That's them.
Well, okay,
they've said it over and over again. That's what they want to be. That's not what they were today.
Okay, let me ask you this. Should we be surprised that the same problems are recurring? This is the same defense.
Essentially,
it's
yes.
Kwity Paye replacing Justin Houston on the starting lineup, because otherwise it's El-Qadim Muhammad and Taekwon Lewis. Taekwon Lewis is replacing Danico Autry, and that's it.
Well, I think
Zaire Franklin, in for Anthony Walker.
I think the one thing that stuck out today, though, was that the positions that struggled the most are the positions where they were supposed to be the strongest. I thought today that the defensive line, not great, pass rushing wise, but I thought there was a lot of pressure early on.
Sure.
I thought the back seven, the linebackers and particularly the safeties, had a rough day.
Right,
and that's who's supposed to be the good parts of the defense, the certain parts of the defense.
Well, the D-line is too, with Grover and DeForest making all the money they're making.
Right, and DeForest largely played up to his part.
Agreed.
Grover Stewart did.
Yeah.
But the back seven, I thought this game was more on the back seven than I thought it was on the defensive line.
I agree, but I think that's probably been true in the past. Again, it's just funny that you were saying all the problems are the same that we've seen before. Well, this is the same defense that we've seen before for the most part, with some younger guys filling in for some older, experienced veterans. We knew they were going to miss Danico Autry a little bit. We knew they were going to miss Justin Houston, though he was inconsistent last year. Again, Kwity Paye is eventually going to become a very good player, I think, but it's going to take time, and they're going to have to replace that. So, I don't know. I guess when you break it down that way and say that the problems were familiar, I said, well, the faces on the field were pretty familiar. That's true. That should inspire some hope, though, because they did finish a top 10 defense last year, so they should be better.
Well, it's an opener. You don't want to put too much on it, but in terms of judging this game on its merit, pretty bad from the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. 28 points. Again, I think that's right around where Seattle's average was last year.
It was 28.3. I know there was a fan who was saying they held them under their average, so it was great, but I disagree. It was not great.
I'm very much in the
5.8 yards per carry, 152.3 quarterback rating. I think Seattle averaged 7.6 yards per play, which is really good.
Yeah, they ran. What did Carson run for?
91 yards
on 16 carries.
140 yards for the Seahawks would have been third most last year. It was more than the Colts gave up in any game last year other than the two Tennessee games.
And this isn't like Russell Wilson scramble. He was five carries, 9 yards. So this was legit runs.
Yeah.
These were legitimate runs.
Yeah, no. I went and looked it up. They gave up over 200 yards against Henry in the no Buckner game. I think we all know about that one.
Right.
But they gave up, I think, 157 in the first one, which is surprising. I didn't remember that.
In the one that they blew him out in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Tennessee just kept running despite being down by a bunch?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But other than that...
Sure, the Colts were okay with that.
But other than that, it was... This would have been the third most.
Yeah. Again, that's a problem. Again, I would say you're right. I think the defensive line was okay, probably good in some aspects, but they are part of the problem when it comes to stopping the run like that. But Chris Carson was bowling over. I thought you're right. I thought the Colts linebackers were terrible today.
They struggled. They really struggled. And the safety struggled.
Yeah.
And do you remember Julian Blackmon?
Nope. Not at all. I unfortunately, Kari had the sack, which was a good play. And he had, but other than that, I only remember him for bad things, really.
Defensively, they ended up with 7 quarterback hits and 3 sacks. Oh, I thought it was 4. They must have taken one of the sacks away. They took a sack away from Blackmon on one of those scramble plays where Wilson fell down.
You didn't like that sack anyway, so
I didn't.
So you're happy they took it away. Yeah, no, they should. They should have taken it away. It's not legit. He was just killing time.
But yeah, just not much out of anybody other than Buckner. Buckner had 6 tackles, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, and a tackle for loss. That's pretty good.
It's him looking around going, can I get some help?
Yeah.
And I guess I don't think Grover was bad. I don't think he was great either. But
Grover had 4 tackles and a quarterback hit, which is for a nose tackle.
Actually, that's actually very
productive.
good. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. So that maybe I was a little low on Grover even.
But yeah, no, just
what did Darius Leonard tackles finish at? 5. And he had. We were tracking. He had 1 with 3 minutes to go in the first half, and it was 13 yards down the field.
Yeah.
He was bad in the first half. I think, give him credit. I think he played better in the second half. He forced that
fumble. Yep.
But I thought overall it was a bad performance. And the forced fumble is great, but you gave up. You were a big reason they gave up 21 points in the first half. It doesn't make up for it. Just the one impact play. So, yeah, defensively it was, I think, a giant disappointment. And again, going back to the Rams for week 2, we haven't seen them play yet, but that offense is supposed to be very explosive with Matthew Stafford at the helm now.
Well, you've got Matthew Stafford. You've got a ton of receivers.
Yep.
You've got Sean McVay's scheme, which is going to be very similar to the one they just saw.
Yeah.
Because the Seahawks offensive coordinator just came from there.
McVay's going to watch that tape and go, oh, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly that. You guys struggle with cover 2 beaters? Guess what? I got a bunch for you.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got a lot to fix in a week. They got a lot to fix in a week on stuff that's supposed to be their foundation. And again, it's just an opener. The Colts have lost a lot of openers in the past. Not just the 8-game streak. It goes before they won one, I think they lost like 4 or 5 before that.
I think they were 1-13 or something like that.
So there's a lot of playoff seasons in there that started with a loss. So if you want to look at it that way, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
You should.
It's just a season opener. Also, that's a weird saying. Why would anyone throw the baby out with the bathwater?
I feel like it's a relic of a different era, like where people might do that. I just for me, I grew up and I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what you're like. You're probably. I assume you're throwing the bathwater out. You're just getting you're not. It didn't drain. Maybe this is before drainage, plumbing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but why wouldn't you take the baby out first?
Well, that's the point. You wouldn't do it.
They're loud and they're crying.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, sorry. That's a weird digression. It's like that. It was like in the for people out there who've seen Ted Lasso. It was like when Ted Lasso says kissing your sister in season 1, and then no one knows what he's talking about. I'm sorry, I don't like that analogy. It's exactly that. It came out of my mouth, and I was like, I don't like this saying. Why did I just say that?
That could be the last time you use it. If it makes you, it could be the here and now. I feel like I was a part of history. No, like I said, the Rams are going to be a problem for this team, and this is, frankly, it's not the reason I thought it was going to be. I thought Carson Wentz was going to be. I didn't think he was going to be good today because, again, lack of practice time, lack of chemistry. I thought he was good. But ultimately, what I thought was this team's going to get off to a slow start because of all the things that went wrong during the preseason and training camp, and because they're going to have such a tough schedule. And 0-1 is what I predicted, and I predicted a 1-4 start. I'm not saying I'm going to be right, but I am saying I'm worried about it because if they get off to that rough of a start, it's really hard. And again, we know this is Frank Reich has led a team back from a terrible start to the playoffs, but the AFC is loaded right now, loaded with really, really good teams. I don't know how far you can fall back and then hope to climb back in the race. So again, 1 week, don't want to overdo it or anything like that, but it is one of those things that I think you have to be concerned about. If this is the performance, the offensive line, the defense is going to look like for the first 4 or 5 weeks, they're going to lose 4 or 5 games. Because they're playing that quality of team.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of it is last year they lose to Jacksonville and then they come out and just curb stomp the Vikings. So
it's true.
Things can change a lot from week to week.
But the Vikings ended up being not great, and the Rams I think are going to be pretty good.
But the flip side of that is it has to change. It has to change and be different than it was this week. There's just not a lot to hang your hat on this week.
Agreed.
It's Carson Wentz. Hey, Mike Strawn made 2 catches, and I'm out.
Here's what I'll say to make you guys feel better. The division leader right now
is the
Houston Texans. So
Tennessee actually looked worse than the Colts did.
I would assume they got blown out by Arizona. We didn't watch the game, obviously, but yeah. So
and gave up 5 sacks to one guy.
Did he have 5? He finished with 5.
Chandler Jones had 5 sacks.
Taylor Lewan
tweeted about how bad he was.
Yeah.
That's how bad the game went for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I almost said maybe one of the Colts linemen should do that, but to give up 5 sacks to the same guy, that probably is a different level of...
I know, somebody up here in the press box was saying, but it's Chandler Jones. No, 5 is too many.
5's too many. If you give up 2 to one guy, that's a problem.
5 is way too many.
He had 3 in the nightmare. He had 3 in the first quarter. So, yes, they are, I will say this with absolute confidence, they are trailing the Houston Texans by a game in this division, and I think they can catch them. I mean, again, hey, credit to Houston for coming out strong when everybody thought they were going to be dead and go 0-17.
But also not credit to them because they're playing Jacksonville.
Sorry, I'm smiling. I really want bad things for Jacksonville.
Jim does not like Urban Meyer.
I really hate Urban Meyer. I think I've said this on the podcast, but I'm leaving now, so I don't care I really don't like Urban Meyer, and I wish bad things for him. And I feel bad because I think that, again, I don't want to wish bad things on the Jacksonville Jaguars players, but I really don't like Urban Meyer. So if he goes 0-17 and gets fired in 1 week or in 1 year, I can go back to not caring about the Jaguars as opposed to just hating them. So yeah, anything else you want to add? Honestly, like you said, there's not a lot to hang your hat on. No significant injuries to talk about, I don't think.
That's probably good.
You can hang your head on that.
Except that the Xavier Rhodes injury sounded worse than it was originally thought to be, and sounded like it might linger. So
yes, and it's not like they have what.
So they didn't get any new injuries, but they still have injury concerns hanging out there.
And next week is what? Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. One of my all-time favorite nicknames in sports right now is Bob Trees for Robert Woods. I love Bob Trees. He's great, by the way. And then the next week after that is Tennessee. Am I right? Is it Tennessee in week 3?
Yes, Tennessee in week 3, Miami in week 4, and then Baltimore.
A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. And then, then it lightens up in terms of receivers. Did Miami win today?
That game was going on when we started this, actually.
It was?
But Miami will have Devontae Parker and Will Fuller at the very least.
That is true. And Jalen Waddle, and they'll be good. So, anyway, again, it won't be as strong as the first 3 groups of receivers they saw, but it'll be tough. So, anyway, the point being is they need Xavier Rhodes back as quick as they can. So, no injuries. Yeah, am I missing anything, or are we about done here?
I think we're about done. Pretty bad. Pretty bad opener. 28-16, and it felt worse than that.
Somebody walked by me in the hallway and said, "Man, I thought it'd be nice to have sent you out on a better note." I was like, "Week 1, what did you expect?" Like, that's the Colts. This is what they do. I've covered 3 week 1s now, all bad.
Well, I hate to see Jim go. I'm not really looking forward to having to find somebody else to work with and stuff like that. I'm jealous of Jim's family taking him to Chicago.
Thank you.
I did pay up my bet. I want the listeners to know that.
Oh, yeah. We should talk about that.
I did pay up my bet. I gave Jim a 4-pack of Metazoa Hippopotamus.
Very delicious beer.
On the way in today.
Go try some for yourselves if you guys don't know about it.
And also, I made sure that it had never been refrigerated because I knew I'd have to give it to you here so that you don't have the cold and then warm.
I've always heard that's like an urban legend.
Myth. It's an urban legend that's scary enough to me that I follow it.
I totally agree. If you gave me skunked beer, I would be like, "What's he trying to say? What kind of message was he sending?"
So I'm not happy to see Jim go. I mean, but also selfishly can't make Jim do things that are not good for his family. I'm not Jim's family.
No.
I really appreciate everything you've done on the beat. And I think I owe you one last sign off since that's your thing.
What? I have to come up with a good sign off?
On the podcast. I mean, you lead us in and you take us out. So
okay, so this is the end. All right, great. Well, thank you for those kind words, and I appreciate it. And thank you guys again for listening and for being a part of this. And I've had a blast covering the Colts and talking with all of you and engaging with all of you. So thank you. Thank you, Joel. I miss working with you for sure, man. And you guys have a good night. Hopefully it gets better in week 2.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Colts Cover 2 podcast. I am the Dark Colts Insider, Jim Ayala, and I am joined, as always, by fellow co-host and insider, Joel A. Erickson.
All right, that's what we want.
Hello? Can you hear me? I can't keep going.
All right.
Right in front of your face. Stop it. Leave me alone. I'm done. I've had enough of this.
All right. That's what we want.
I'm not going to respond. Thank you for joining us. Right in front of your face. This is your time. This is your moment.
All right.
It's fine. It's fine. You might be a little Grinch in me. I love potatoes.
All right.
I'm an old man. Stop it. Leave me alone. I don't love that I'm this way.
All right. That's what we want.
Julian Blackman, my God! Well, just don't make me eat the things I don't want to eat. It's fine. It's not my favorite. I'm a meat and potatoes guy. Hello? My God! Right in front of your face. If you listen this deep, you are a special, unique person.
Thank you for joining us.
Damn it, Clark.